Hello and welcome to Granada Reports, live with the latest across the northwest.
Hello, on the programme this evening.
The human cost of the knife crime epidemic. Reese was chased, then stabbed to death in Bolton. Tonight his family called for tougher sentences.
What is Reese's life to 15 years and 6 years? It's nothing. That's nothing.
Sedation breathing?
No. I don't know. She's lost a lot of breath.
A mother dies after waiting almost an hour for paramedics to arrive. Tonight, an apology from the ambulance service.
Shielding for almost 2 years with no end in sight. How the lifting of Plan B COVID restrictions could affect the most vulnerable.
One giant leap for Manchester. We're aiming high with the city's basketball team in their first cup final for more than 20 years.
And we've netted a decent day today, certainly better than yesterday anyway, but there's some strong winds in the forecast. More about that later in the programme.
Well, we start tonight, yet again, with knife crime as it continues to cause death and destroy families across the northwest.
Investigations are still ongoing in Stretford in Greater Manchester, where a 16-year-old was killed on the street last weekend. And more than 100 miles away in Barrow, where another teenager was stabbed at his school.
It's a trauma that's too familiar for one family from Bolton. Last year, 15-year-old Reese Tansey died after he was challenged to a fight via social media. He was then stabbed 6 times.
Tonight, his family tell us tougher sentences are needed to stop young people arming themselves with weapons.
We'll also hear from one man who was involved in Manchester's gang culture as a teenager.
But before that, our correspondent Elaine Wilcox looks at how knife crime is taking its toll.
Reese Tansey's family only have photographs and their memories left. The 15-year-old was stabbed 6 times by 2 teenage boys in Bolton who'd arranged a fight on Snapchat, then posted a video holding the blood-stained knife, which was seen by his family.
And it was the knife that had been used on Reese. The pain, the heartbreak, everything is just so devastating, everything.
Reese was seen running for his life, using his last breath to name his killers. His family say a tougher deterrent is needed to stop teenagers arming themselves and carrying knives.
Our kids are scared to go out. I've told my daughters and stuff, anybody says a word to you, you get out of there, because you do not know. You think in your head, no, they have a knife in their pocket. Because that's the way the kids are really going about. That's how they really are living these days.
Share this information with us. You're not a coward. You're not a grass. We are here as a community to support you, and we will act to prevent that violence.
Greater Manchester's Violence Reduction Unit says they need parents, teachers and young people to start talking about issues to stop them escalating.
We've got toxic masculinity. We've got people that can't see another way, but the dispute will turn into a fight. Actually, what we need to do is put a foot on the ball and say to those children and really appeal to them and parents in our communities, let's mediate, let's get involved in it.
And how do you stop them going out with a knife?
Maybe searching a room, looking for the weapons.
There are calls for more action on knife crime after a 15-year-old pupil was stabbed multiple times in Warnley School in Barrow. He's now been discharged from hospital. A 16-year-old boy is still being questioned. 6 people aged 15 to 17 are still in custody on suspicion of murder after 16-year-old Kenny Carter was fatally stabbed in Stretford at the weekend. Reese's killers were sentenced to 15 years for murder and 6 for manslaughter after boasting about taking a life.
He ain't going to do anything, and he's not going to do 6 years, he'll probably do 3. It's like, what is that going to do at all? What is that for Reese? Every day, just watching Laura the way she is, she's just been a broken woman. Never be enough.
This grieving family are backing the campaign to get knives off the streets. They also want Reese's killers to be named. A decision on that will be made in court next month. Elaine Wilcox, ITV News, Bolton.
Well, earlier, I was joined by Mark Bracewell, a reformed ex-gangster from Moss Side. I began by asking him if he thinks things are getting worse. And just a warning, towards the end of our chat, he shows me the real consequences of knife crime, which some of you may find upsetting.
Yeah, most definitely. I think they are getting worse, and I believe that obviously the children that are getting involved are getting younger and younger. I can only imagine what it must be like for a teenager nowadays. I mean, when I was a teenager growing up, there was a lot of bad stuff happening, but it seemed to be the older people that were involved, whereas nowadays it's like I say, it's the 12, 13, 14-year-olds.
You seem to have more young people, as you've just alluded to, who are carrying knives and, you know, for the lightest of reasons, potentially.
The more they pick up on it, the more scared they're getting, because ultimately they're thinking that it can happen to them. So what kids are doing, they're actually picking up knives and carrying knives to protect themselves, just in case somebody else has got a knife.
We heard in Elaine's report that Teresa's killing was organised on Snapchat. Do you think that social media companies have a role to play in all of this?
At the end of the day, they are the ones that allow what gets put out there, and they're the ones that should be policing it. And I most definitely think that there should be some sort of task force that looks at social media.
And that is a long-term process, but in the short term, Mark, what do you think needs to be put in place in order to be able to stop this from happening?
I remember back in the day when I was younger, we had the guardian angels out on the streets, and they just tried to make people feel a lot more safer and a lot more secure. We need people out there on the streets showing the kids that there is people out there looking out for them. That's what we need.
You regularly speak to young people, you regularly work with young people. What would your message be to them this evening?
My message would be that knives affects lives. Yes, there's the people that get stabbed, but there's also the people, the families that it affects, the people that have to deal with the aftermath. One knife affects so many lives, and your life is worth something. You have a bright future ahead of you. You can be anything that you want to be. You need to just not pick up a knife, because ultimately, once you've got it, you're going to use it. So don't do it.
And if that message doesn't get through, Mark, what happens then?
Well, like myself, I mean, I'll do it here now on camera if you want. So obviously I was stabbed myself and I lost my eye. You know, they're the sort of things that can happen to you. I have to live with that for the rest of my life.
Yours is a powerful message. Mark, thanks for joining us today. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Subject no doubt will be returning to. Well, next tonight, to one man's agonising wait for an ambulance for his dying mother, an ambulance which never came.
Yeah, Akshay Patel, who's from Ashton under Lyne, called for help as his mother, Beena, struggled to breathe last October.
They had to wait for almost an hour, by which time it was too late. She'd suffered a fatal heart attack.
North West Ambulance Service now say they can't apologise enough to Akshay and his family after they carried out an internal review.
Tim Scott reports.
Beena, relax. Just
Observation breathing.
No.
All right, so
I don't know. She's lost a lot of breath.
Tell me exactly what's happening.
Beena Patel screams out in agony as her son Akshay talks to the ambulance service last October. The 56-year-old had woken up in the middle of the night, unable to breathe.
She was collapsing on the bed. So every time I had her sat up straight, she was just falling back. And I had to kind of keep her upright. I was holding her to make sure she doesn't fall back.
Akshay made his first call for an ambulance at 2:31 a.m. They should have arrived within 18 minutes. When they didn't come, he tried again.
Currently is likely it could be over an hour and a half, but that's from your first call.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
It's just incredibly busy this evening.
As Beena's condition got worse, Akshay called 5 more times before an ambulance eventually came, over an hour from his first call. But it was too late to save his mum.
At that point, she collapsed on the floor and she just went dead silent. And that's when I knew, it's too late.
Akshay's story is not unique. The average response time for a Category 2 call like Akshay's is currently 53 minutes. That's triple the 18-minute target. In the North West, patients wait even longer, an hour and 7 minutes. North West Ambulance Service sent Akshay a report explaining that whilst they did have sufficient resources on that night, high demand meant they couldn't deliver the service they should have been able to.
I just can't believe that, because that sentence to me, it sounds like they're contradicting themselves. They've got the resources, but because of the demand, they don't have enough resources. Makes no sense.
In a statement, North West Ambulance Service told us, "In this case, we can never say sorry enough. The amount of time it took for help to arrive is unacceptable. The exceptional demand we have faced has regularly seen resources overstretched. While we understand it will be of little comfort to her family, we want to make clear no human error led to the delay faced by Mrs. Patel." Akshay must now face life without his mother, and he's referred her case to the Ombudsman. Tim Scott, ITV News, Ashton-under-Lyne.
Yeah, thanks to Akshay for speaking to us. Next, at midnight tonight, the government's Plan B coronavirus restrictions will cease to exist.
Some businesses are saying that they will still insist on customers wearing masks, but they'll no longer be compulsory in all shops, on public transport or in schools.
Work from home guidance will end and COVID certificates won't be needed to enter some public venues.
For some people, though, it will mean an increasingly anxious time and their own restrictions. For example, John Price from Warrington, who has leukemia. He's already been shielding for 2 years.
He fears that as restrictions fall away, people like him will be forgotten, with many unable to leave their homes at all.
He's been talking to our correspondent Rob Smith.
Going round his shrunken world takes seconds. The loop path outside John Price's house in Warrington has often been his limit. Living with leukemia for years means his immune systems diminish. The end of Plan B restrictions makes him deeply anxious. He told me his doctor warned COVID vaccines may not work for him.
On a good day, the boffins think that somebody with a blood cancer may only have a 30% protection.
Because effectively there isn't the immune system for it to latch onto.
No, exactly. It brings an anxiety, and you just take each day at a time, and if you need to do something, you say, is that worth the risk of catching COVID?
John and his wife Anne have tried to reduce risk as much as possible. She's been by his side throughout, and he says he's lucky not to be alone. He runs a support group for those with weakened immunity who don't have anyone, and John feels the government has let them down.
They've used the words soul down the river. Because we've been hung out to dry is another thing I heard.
Do you feel that way?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, particularly with things that are going on in the world. Lots of people who are immune suppressed, they've made massive sacrifices, and other people haven't.
Tonight, officials told us.
We have issued public health advice for people whose immune system means they are at a higher risk of serious outcomes from COVID-19. This advice remains in place. Those previously considered clinically extremely vulnerable are advised to follow the same guidance as the general public, but consider taking extra precautions to reduce their chance of catching COVID-19.
Precautions John can't see ending anytime soon. Rob Smith, ITV News, Warrington.
Well, Professor Matt Ashton is Liverpool's Director of Public Health, and he says that for people like John, it is still a very serious situation.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, very much COVID hasn't gone away. It's around, and it's likely to be around for some time. And we know that some people, more vulnerable people, will be more prone to serious effects if they do get COVID.
So what do people who are vulnerable do now? Stay at home?
Well, I don't think we'd advise that either. You know, we are all part of society, and we need to be out and about seeing people. We just need to do it in as safe a way possible, depending on our individual situations.
So when those Plan B restrictions come to an end, would you expect to see masks disappear altogether in shops and on transport and in workplaces?
I very much hope that people will still use face coverings in situations that they deem appropriate. You know, it's very similar to when it's raining, people use an umbrella, don't they, to protect themselves, stop getting wet. Face coverings, the usefulness of face coverings doesn't go away. We just now need to make those individual judgments about when is best to use them.
On a personal note, you've obviously been really busy throughout the pandemic. I wonder how comfortable you are with these changes.
Rates are coming down, and they're coming down well. We're about a third of the level we were earlier in January, so that's good. But they're not low, they are still high levels of rate.
Well, some of our viewers have been in touch. Pam in Liverpool, for example, says, can we just scrap all of this ridiculous testing? It's simple. If you're not well, just stay at home.
I'm sure that overall testing strategy will change over the longer term. But right now, it's a really important part of our surveillance approach, actually, to understand what variants are around, how much of it is around, and what measures we might need to do to keep people safe and well.
And Amanda in Blackpool says, is anyone really bothered anymore? There are a number of people who've been in touch saying things like that. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I recognise that, and that's something I get fed back to me a lot. I think the difficulty is just because we all want the pandemic to be over doesn't magically make it. So I get completely that people are listening less to the messages and people want to move on with their lives, as do I. The reality is, unfortunately, COVID levels are still high and we do have to deal with that.
What would you say to all of those people who have stuck to the rules rigidly all the way through and made enormous sacrifices along the way because of their community spirit, Matt?
To everybody that has, thank you very much, because it's been incredibly helpful and important in keeping the levels of harm down in our communities. But not everybody has done. And I think that's part of our job as health professionals to explain, where the challenges still exist, the harm that can be done in our communities, and how we can all work together to minimise that harm.
Professor Matt Ashton, thank you for joining us. Now let's change the subject. Only last week we had you all very excited when we were telling you the story of how you could win a pub in a raffle. Well, how do you fancy winning a house worth more than £250,000?
Yeah, quite a few for you, I would imagine. And that's the best part of all of this. It's all in aid of Derry House Children's Hospice.
Yeah, every penny will go towards giving young children the care and support that they deserve in the toughest of times.
Just like one-year-old Freddie Halliwell, who's living with a rare life-limiting condition.
Well, today, Freddie and his parents were on hand to help ahead of that big giveaway, as Sarah Rogers reports.
3, 2, 1.
In his own personalised hard hat, little Freddie Halliwell helps to break ground on a house that someone is going to win for as little as a £5. Incredibly, it's been given for free from the developers in Blackburn to a local children's hospice that helps look after Freddie and hundreds of other children with life-limiting illnesses. The winner will be selected as part of a prize draw. How did it all come about?
Just one of those things one morning in the kitchen where we thought, how could we help them? And we like to do things slightly differently, and what better way than to donate a house to the hospice.
So this will be transformed into this, with every penny from that prize draw going here to Derry House. And behind the big ticket item, support that's worth its weight in gold. Derry House is a home from home for Freddie and his family. He has a rare genetic condition which means he may never walk or talk, but has just reached a huge milestone, his first birthday.
I didn't think he was going to make it. We celebrate everything.
Yeah.
And Derry House help us with that. Anything he does, first time he rolled over, they celebrate just as much as we do. They're so proud of him.
It's just an amazing place. Forget about the outside world for a bit and just enjoy themselves and take in those precious moments, really.
Well, the property at this site here in Blackburn is actually worth £250,000, but Derry House hope that by selling tickets they can raise much more and help many more families. The charity need to raise 86% of funds themselves.
Just overwhelming the difference this will make. To get over the £250,000 would be amazing. That will keep the hospice open for probably nearly a month, which is quite overwhelming, really.
Well, took it out from his big moment, Freddie has no idea just what he's achieved today, but he might be back here sooner rather than later. Have you bought a ticket?
Of course we have, yeah. We saw it straight away and we got them straight away.
And whilst this house will give one lucky winner a new home, the money raised will help hundreds of families create special memories in theirs. Sarah Rogers, ITV News.
Idea. We're all a bit in love with Freddie now. If you would like to get yourself in the draw to help Derry House, you can find all of those details on our website at itv.com/Granada, and well done to everyone who works in our hospices for all the great work they do.
Absolutely. On to sport now, and concerns for a Liverpool player on international duty. Mike.
Yeah, that's right. Liverpool will not be happy about this. Senegal have been accused of putting results ahead of safety after Liverpool's Sadio Mane suffered a head injury in the Africa Cup of Nations win over Cape Verde. Mane scored this goal in the second half of the game. That was after he'd been allowed to continue playing following a clash of heads. Shortly after the goal, he had to be helped from the field and was taken to hospital for checks, from where he posted this picture, smiling with the goalkeeper he'd collided with. Brain Injury Association Headway says Mane's health was put at risk. To some transfer news, and Anthony Martial has finally left Manchester United. He's joined Spanish side Sevilla on loan for the rest of the season. He signed for United in a £36 million move from Monaco in 2015, but was frustrated at a lack of first-team football. To some very sad news from the world of boxing. The legendary trainer Brian Hughes has died. A proud Mancunian, he founded Collyhurst Lads Club in the 1960s and dedicated his life to training young boxers in the city. He worked with many future champions, including Tyson Fury, Scott Quigg and Robin Reed, and he was honoured for his work in the year 2000 when he was awarded an MBE. He was 82. And a lovely man too. Now, it was always a big ask, and sadly for Dave Riding, there was no repeat of his heroics in his latest competition in Austria. At the weekend, the Lancashire skier won Britain's first ever Alpine Skiing World Cup gold medal with victory in the Kitzbühel slalom. Last night, he raced in Schladming, but had to settle for 20th place. Next up for him, it's the Winter Olympics. Now the stage is set for one of the biggest matches in British basketball. It's the BBL Cup final this weekend, and for the first time in their history, the Manchester Giants are hoping to win the trophy. They take on Leicester Riders in Birmingham, looking to secure the team's first piece of silverware since they reformed a decade ago. David Chisnell reports.
An outpouring of emotion as a sleeping giant of British basketball awakens. The once mighty Manchester Giants are on the comeback trail, and this weekend can win their first piece of silverware since being reborn in 2011, as they're through to the final of the BBL Cup.
By reaching the final, we've started to create some buzz. We would love to be one of those teams that's able to, win here, establish ourselves domestically, and then move on to European competition. It's a big step and a long way off really right now, but yeah, we're going quickly.
It's 22 years since the Giants last won silverware. That was the league title during an era that saw them play in front of 14,000 at the Manchester Arena. But after their owners pulled out, the club collapsed in 2001. Now, as they look to reach for the stars once again, the Giants have signed one. At 6'11", Dan Clark's height is not his only impressive stat, as he's also Great Britain's all-time leading point scorer. He wears number 7, and his move to the Giants has been likened to Ronaldo's return to United.
Signed on the same day this summer, so I mean, it's a huge compliment, obviously, comparing me to Cristiano. But yeah, it's great to be in that situation. It's a privilege, and hopefully I can, bring home some silverware to back up my signing.
Well, Leicester Riders stand in their way of silverware on Sunday, and it's a family affair for Jordan and Patrick Whelan. The brothers from Culcheth will be on opposite sides, so what's their message to each other ahead of the final?
Pat, it's your big bro here. Remember all those times on the driveway where you lost a lot of games to your big brother? It's probably going to be the same on Sunday.
Yo, what up, Jordan? It's your little bro, little big bro, I should say. Seeing as you're the little one now, but yeah, we'll get into it. We'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward to proving you wrong, fam.
It's a sibling rivalry that's problematic for parents.
We've split them up. Actually, my mum's going to be in the Giants section, my dad's going to be in the Leicester section, so mutual support from both sides. I keep having to remind people that remember who's representing Manchester.
Both Jordan and Patrick have extra motivation to win every time they step out onto court, as they do it in memory of their older brother Daniel, who died at the age of 18.
It's something I think about all the time, something I've been thinking about my whole life. It's the reason I wear number 12, which is the number he grew up playing in, and my brother has his name on his shoes, and I think he'll be looking down and be proud of us both.
Well, emotions will be high as a crowd of up to 10,000 is expected at the final to see which brother and which team will come out on top. David Chisnell, ITV News, Manchester.
Yeah, best of luck to the Giants. That's your sport.
Yeah, we'll let you know. Mike, thank you. Now the weather with John.
That sunshine really made your eyeshadow pop, you know. And you put the wipe in the bin, not the toilet.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Go ahead, Queen.
Hello again. Well, a brighter day today compared to yesterday. Still quite a lot of cloud around, like here at Widnes this morning. But further south over Cheshire, a burst of sunshine here at Acton Bridge and a little bit of blue sky over Liverpool today. And it's Chinese New Year coming up. It's a year of the tiger, so they tell me. Now, overnight tonight and into tomorrow, plenty of isobars there on the weather chart, but that cold front will bring a drop of rain overnight tonight, and then tomorrow it's a bright and a breezy day from the northwest. So some detail then for this evening, clouding up from the north, some outbreaks of rain overnight tonight, quite heavy for a time and quite windy and blustery too, but it will all move away southwards as the night goes on, and the overnight low around 6 or 7 Celsius. There are your sun times for tomorrow then, up in the morning at 8:06 and setting again 4:42 tomorrow afternoon. So that rain smartly pulling away tomorrow morning, and then it's a decent day. A bright and a breezy day. There's a very small chance of a shower passing through, but it won't last long. Most places staying dry. In the sunshine, feeling quite pleasant with a top temperature of 10 Celsius. And then through tomorrow night, a cold night to come, and then into Friday. It starts off fine and bright, but it won't be too long before cloud thickens from the west, bringing some outbreaks of drizzly rain and a top temperature of only around 9 Celsius. So not too good on Friday and not too good over the weekend, to be frank. A lot of cloud, some heavy spells of rain around, and at times very windy as well. That's it. Enjoy your evening.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Those eyebrows are unreal.
That's a strong tie, John.
That is. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.